Welcome to joining me. Lovely to have you with me. And we are going to be looking at how does deal sourcing with the solicitor work. By deal sourcing, I mean packaging. Before I introduce myself, let's just make sure you get what we're going to talk about so it's right for you. So deal packaging is when you find a discounted deal, you find an investor, you put them together, the investor buys the deal, the investor goes off with the deal if you like. You don't have any further involvement with the deal. They can flip it, they can keep it and rent it out, they do the renovation, and you get paid a fee. It is how I started in property. It's how I earn a lot of money in property. And of course, you as the deal sourcer, well, for me, I always was the number one buyer of my own deal sourcing company. I had the pick of the crop. It was pretty good. But for that, you need to build a bit of a team, and you will have to have solicitors. And I'm going to give you the lowdown, if you like, the background. We did over 200 deals, so we really work with a number of solicitors, and I'm going to show you how that works. But if you are brand new to me and you're like, I want to be a deal packager, first time I've ever met you, Susannah, nice to meet you. I am Susannah Cole. I run The Good Property Company, which is both now an online education business, which you can download immediately from my website. I've got a whole section on 60-Day Deal Packager Academy. I've got whole sections on finding deals, finding investors. Beautiful look at my website, because I spend a lot of time creating that education so that you can get confident, you can get motivated, you understand what to do, and you can succeed. It's the education I wanted when I started. And also the YouTube channel. And again, you can have a look back at my back catalogue, isn't it? You can see me when I started out, when I was like running from deal to deal, going to the gym, wobbly camera work. And we did over 200 deals. So you see my history. We've had millions of views. And do subscribe and like to the YouTube channel. And part of that is I'm quite excited about the year's worth of plans of videos I've got scheduled for you, usually questions people have asked me. So let's come on to the question, how does deal packaging with the solicitor work? Where does the solicitor fit in? What do you do? How many of them do you have? All of that stuff. If you're going to be a deal packager, if you're going to earn money from property, packaging on deals, which I highly recommend as an entry strategy to property, as a beginner strategy, if you've got no money, like I didn't, then you're going to need to know this information. So tip number one is you need to have more than one solicitor in your team. I always want you to have 3 different solicitors. I don't mean colleagues in the same company. I mean 3 different legal firms. And there's a reason for that, is speed. Conveyancing, which is the legal process solicitors do to make sure the property is bought legally, correctly. They've investigated the contract, the inquiries, the searches, all of that stuff. It's not known for its speed. And the problem or the difficulty or the solution you need to create when you're sourcing discounted deals is there's often a problem. It's often the vendor's problem or it's the property problem, and you need to solve that. And when it's the vendor's problem and they need to sell really, really quickly, if your lawyer can't go fast, you're going to lose the deal, right? So you're definitely going to need to spread your work out over 3 sets of solicitors. So that's why I always want you to have 3 sets of solicitors that you are working with, that your investors will then work with, so that you can always be at point of choice and think, they got enough work, they can't handle anymore, I'm going to give them some work and I need to give them some work. And because of the speed that you need your solicitors to work at, you're going to burn some of them out. They're going to end up going, I don't want to work this fast. I quite like doing conveyancing over a 12-week period. Whereas the fastest I bought a property was 4 days, because the lawyer was good and the money was ready. Doesn't need to take much longer. And it was an auction property, so some of the inquiries were ready there in the contract. The second tip I'm going to give you is, how do you recruit them? And what is the criteria for recruiting them? Well, won't come as any surprise. The number one criteria is, can they get the job done quickly? Speed again. So if somebody is really slow, they are not a deal sourcer, deal packaging lawyer for a business. They need to be like, you know what, I'm nimble, I'm fast, I'm going to make this happen. And because you're effectively going to recruit them that don't think they're actually going to work for you, you don't pay them. They will work for your investor clients. So you will say, dear investor, I suggest you work with this one. And the formal client will be your investor who's buying the property and paying you a deal fee. But the lawyers need to understand your processes. They need to understand your systems. They need to understand how the whole thing works from start to beginning. I find a deal, I match it with an investor. The investor buys it. I get paid a fee. The investor takes it off. And they need to know that it's fast, and they need to know that you're going to be really quite involved in making sure this deal comes forward. So like in our academy, in our mentoring Facebook group, which is only available to my academy and mentees, we often share recommendations for lawyers. So word of mouth recommendation, are they fast, are they good? My third tip for you is get the paperwork done in advance. So when I ran a deal packaging business, which I only ever ran for just under 5 years because my job wasn't to be a deal packager. My job was to escape the 9 to 5, be financially free, run life on my terms. I'm here in Bristol. I also live in Barcelona, which is why I've got a bit of a tan on me, because when I lived there half the time in a flat that I've bought for myself, that I bought for my birthday. It's paid for by cash. And I go swimming every day in the Med. That is my job, wasn't it? To look and to look after my family. So my job wasn't ever going to be a deal packager forever. I would see a deal packaging business as a 3 to 5 year business in order to buy your own properties to jump out the rat race, okay? But while you were running that deal packaging business, what I used to do was charge my investors £1,000 membership fee. Not because I was like, oh, give me loads of money, although it was helpful. 50 investors is 50 grand a year, and it's an annual fee, but also it got rid of time wasters. So you know if somebody's serious, if they're really serious, they've done their evaluation of you and they've paid you £1,000, you know that they intend very strongly to buy deals, okay? So they're not just wibbly wobbly, they're like, I am committed, this is what I want to do and I want to do it this year. So why not get them signed up with one of your 3 panels of solicitors in advance? Because it's called a client care pack if you haven't done it before. The lawyers need to verify who the investors are, client ID, money laundering, and all of that jazz. And that takes time. If you can get different clients signed up with different lawyers in advance, they've done all of those admin processes. So you've taken off probably a couple of weeks from the get-go, because you are going to have to be your client's admin assistant. I know it's not sexy, but you want the fee? You deal source of 500 grand property, that's 25 grand fee. Now that's pretty sexy, isn't it? So if you're going to be their admin assistant, you might as well remove a week or two's delay and get them signed up in advance, because they're seriously committed investors, aren't they? Makes sense. And let me tell you a horror story, which is why at that point I learned you have to do all the admin for your clients, or you have to check your clients have done the admin. Years ago, when I was very green, very new property investor doing deal packaging business, we had a really great, profitable flat that we sold to 2 ladies who were doing a partnership. And at that point, I was a bit like, oh, investors are so big, I might feel a little bit little. So I just trusted them to do their paperwork. The lawyer did all the conveyancing, the property was ready to be bought. And I turned around to the ladies and I said, hey, ready to be bought, have you got your funding? And they literally turned around and went, we thought you were doing that. It's like, I don't know how many weeks it was. 8 weeks ago you bought the property. Why goodness? It was a very painful moment. We ended up having to take the property off these ladies, evict them from the group because they were, bless their cotton socks, a little bit incompetent in being able to actually be investors. They were really upset with me. They didn't have the competency, but nonetheless, you can understand for 8 weeks or 10 weeks, they thought they were buying this deal, but because they hadn't bothered to get their funding, I was like, sorry, we're not messing around here. We don't lose deals. And if your behavior is going to force us to lose a deal, I'm afraid you're out the deal. So that taught me that you have to, cross the I's, dot the T's, the other way around, cross the T's, dot the I's, for your investors 100%, because your job is to get the deal over the line and get paid and get the deal to your investor. It's no good that you turn around and go, it's the investor's fault. No, you own it. Their fault, your responsibility. Tip number 5 is more a question: to option or not to option. Now, we're one of the most prolific deal sourcing businesses in the country. I only know of, there might be others, but I only know of one other company that's done more deals than us as a deal packager, and we didn't option once. Loads of people contact me like, oh, where's your option agreement? Didn't do one. Why? Because it freaks the vendor out. It often does. Like, why should I sign this legal document with you? You're just buying the house. Just because you're running a deal packaging business and you work with my investors, I'm working with my own money and my investors' money, doesn't mean to say they care about the fact that you need this deal under option so it doesn't get lost for your investor. So I didn't once option. Option means that you sign an agreement where the vendor is obligated to sell you the property at the price agreed, and you have the option to buy but not the obligation. It is normally used, or originally it was used, when people were like, I'm going to buy that piece of land from you, but before I buy that piece of land, I'm going to spend money getting planning permission so it's more valuable. And clearly I'm not going to spend like, I don't know, 30 grand or whatever it was, getting permission for a block of flats to make this land much more valuable, and then you can sell it to somebody else. So I need an option because I'm going to be taking this risk for planning. And people now use options on houses. So I'll tell you why, the surprising answer why I've never done them. It freaks out the estate agents. They don't really want to know about options. They definitely don't want to bring it up with their client. They just want to know that the property's getting sold. It freaks out auction houses, and they've got, if you're an auction house selling between 50 and 100 properties every month, you really don't want to be faffing around with options, and it freaks out vendors. So what do I do instead? Convince like mad every single day. 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock. There is no opportunity for the vendor or the estate agent or the auction house to ever think that we are not on the ball and not committed. So it's more kind of behavioural relationship, behavioural certainty than an option. Didn't ever give me problems not doing options. Interesting, isn't it? Tip number 4 is get written permission to be signed in, if you like, to correspondence between the lawyer and your client, because although they're your sourcing client, the lawyer has the client relationship directly. So you want written permission so that they can CC you in and everything. And then written permission between your client and their financial advisor, again, so you can be CC'd in on everything. And you're basically like a sheepdog. I mean, you literally are going, come on, let's go. And a trick I used to use was I would phone up the lawyer and say, what's missing? What do you still need to happen? And they would tell me, and I'd be like, could you tell me it in words of one syllable so I've got it correct? Let me repeat this back to you so I make sure I'm correct. And then I would phone up, say, the estate agent. If it was an estate agent selling it, I'd say the lawyer says we need X. Or I'd phone up their mortgage broker and say, we still need X. Or I'd phone up the investor themselves and say, hey, you still need to sign blah, 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 or pay whatever it needs to be paid, for the survey, for example. So I would be like a little sheepdog chasing every person, which would now be your client, the lawyers who you appoint, and then they work directly with the client, their financial advisor, and the person selling the property, whether it's an auction house, an estate agent, direct to vendor. Therefore, your responsibility. You want to get paid? Do the work. And also let's think about what your options, if you pardon the pun, would be. If the vendor didn't sell to you or rather to your investor, are they really going to take the person to court? Your investor's paid for a legal option, more cost on them. If the vendor sells, seriously, are you really going to sue them for it? Because that's tons of money from your investor on an unproductive piece of legal work that might take a year to come to fruition, and their job is to find themselves deals through you. So nobody really wins on options. At least that's my take on it. Other people may have different takes. Interesting, isn't it? As you can tell, a lot of knowledge goes into this, and I've created, as I've said to you, my website, which is full of downloadable education. It's kind of the education I wish I'd had when I started in property, because I've had to analyse a lot in property. We did £45 million worth of property, borrowed millions, flipped a ton. At one point I had 30 on the go at the same time, done loads of joint ventures. By the way, all private funding is paid back, which is quite nice, isn't it? I've paid houses off now, and I've got single lets, multi-lets, service accommodation. My extensive experience in property, I really had to analyse the industry for my own well-being, my own growth, my own profitability, my own wealth. So if I've done that analysis, why not put it into education, and turn it over to you? So you can download everything from my website immediately and get started. And I go into detail because you need that detail. There's no point skimming over the surface. I give you everything you need. So have a good look at the website. And remember, I have a year's worth of videos planned for you, which I'm super excited about, and you don't want to miss them. So subscribe to the channel as well. So to recap, I've given you 5 good tips on how a solicitor works with you as a deal packager. First tip is recruit. Have 3 minimum, never 1. Tip number 2 is what criteria do you recruit for? Speed. And you'll probably learn that from word of mouth, either from estate agents telling you who's good when you ask 20 of them, or maybe from your fellow investors. Tip number 3 is, because your clients are committed to you anyway, because you charge the money to be part of your group, have your clients get signed up with one of the 3 lawyers in advance. So all the money laundering checks, all the ID checks, all the paperwork, all the client care pack, which can take weeks, is done in advance. Saves maybe a week or 2 of time, and time is vital. Tip number 4 is do most of the work. Pushing, adminning, overseeing, cajoling, charming, telling. Yes, you're going to have to do most of the conveyancing work of just pulling all parties together. And tip number 5, to option or not to option, the surprising answer is I did not option once. And we are, I think from what I know, the deal packaging company with the second most amount of deals that I've heard of for anybody doing in the UK. So we're a big company, £45 million worth of property we packaged. Never once an option. Interesting, because we use speed and relationships to keep the deals on track. Some of the deal fees we got were absolutely fantastic. Remember, at time of filming, the average UK salary in the UK is about 32,000. Yeah. So let me just give you 3 out of all those deals, just to whet your appetite, just to make you go, ooh, you know what? She makes it sound like if you followed a process, it would work and I could earn a lot of money. And the answer is yes, you could. Hedwick Street, 180 purchase price, sold for 256. I got paid 5% of purchase price, 9 grand. Gatton Road, 220 purchase price, sold for 312. I got 5% of purchase price, 11 grand. So 9 and 11, 20 grand. And Church Road, purchase price 270, end value just over 400. So how much did I get paid, folks? Let me just double check, 13,500 quid. So we're talking only 3 deals, 9, 11, 13.5, 33,500 quid. 3 deals for a year's average salary for the UK? Get into deal packaging and remember to have a good look at my website. I want to just wish you good luck. The worst mistake you could possibly do is to do nothing. So good luck to you. Sourcing discounted deals, it is the basis of all property wealth. I have written a pack for you guys. You can download it right now. 45 million quid's worth of property, agreed sourcing price for 30 million quid. All that information in that pack.